Rio wakes up surrounded by clouds, standing before an angel. The angel begins by telling him that he has recently died, yet he won't be heading to the afterlife just yet. In short, Rio has become the latest victim of the infamous truck con. Now, it's up to Michael to send him off to a new world to begin a fresh life. According to Michael, Rio won't be given any special mission or grand objective in this new world. He's free to live as he pleases. When Rio expresses his desire for a peaceful and laid-back life, Michael has no objections. But before sending him off, Michael needs to give Rio a quick overview of the world he'll be reincarnated into. The world is called Phi, a magical land where about 20% of the population can use spells tied to their natural elemental affinity. In Rio's case, his strongest affinity is with a water element. Since Rio asked for a peaceful and laid-back life, Michael went ahead and prepared a cozy little house for him. As a starter kit, he included 2 tutorial books, a knife, and even placed a protective barrier around the house to keep monsters at bay. As part of his beginner's kit, Michael has provided Rio with an ice house stocked with enough food to last 2 months, ensuring he won't face hunger anytime soon. Additionally, Michael included a guidebook containing detailed information on every monster Rio might come across in the region. While this will be useful for dealing with the forest's creatures later, Rio's current focus is on testing out his newfound magical abilities. He steps outside and shouts the spell, "Water Come Forth," which instantly forms a sphere of water in his hand. Magic turns out to be much simpler than he imagined. Even more surprising, he can cast the same spell just by visualizing the water ball, so saying the incantation isn't actually required. Now that he's confirmed he can use magic, he heads straight to the bathhouse and begins filling the tub with water. However, he quickly notices a problem. He only knows how to produce water, and there's no way he's going to enjoy a bath that isn't hot. So, he goes outside and tries to build a fire to heat the water manually. The only issue is, he has no clue how to start a fire this way. After a while, he gives up and lies on his back in defeat. But as he stares up at the sun, an idea hits him. Rio grabs a basin, fills it with water, and begins focusing on it, trying to compress it while drawing out the heat. Slowly, ice starts to form. With a bit more effort and practice, he manages to shape the ice into a makeshift magnifying glass. Using it, he harnesses the sunlight to start a fire. With the fire finally going, he heats up his bath, which was filled with ice water. By the end of his first day, he's finally able to unwind and enjoy a proper soak. Now that he's mastered making ice, Rio realizes the opposite should also be possible. If he can remove heat to freeze water, he should be able to add heat to create warm water. This becomes his next goal, something he'll need to practice in the coming days. The following morning, as Rio eats breakfast, he starts to think. With only 2 months' supply of food from Michael, he knows he'll need to hunt soon to restock. But he doubts a mere knife will be enough to fend off the forest monsters, so he resolves to begin practicing his attack magic. His first attempt is launching a water ball at a tree, and it works exactly as he imagined. But a small splash of water won't do much in a real fight. He remembers a way to increase the water's force, so he gathers another ball, this time compressing the water into a focused point for more pressure. The idea is sound, but his control isn't strong enough yet. His water jet barely has more power than a toy water gun. Rio recalls something Michael mentioned before his reincarnation. Magic relies heavily on imagination. The clearer the image in his mind, the better the result, and he just needs to keep refining it through practice. After several days of non-stop training, Rio's water jets are starting to take shape and look decent. However, they're still far from powerful enough to take down a monster. Rio has also figured out how to produce hot water, allowing him to enjoy warm baths whenever he likes. However, he's still working on fine-tuning the temperature, as his control isn't quite perfect yet. The next morning, he decides to practice his ice magic once more. This time, he attempts to conjure ice directly from the air. Though it's difficult and takes nearly 3 minutes to form, he finally succeeds in creating ice out of nothing. However, unlike water, he struggles to launch it with the same ease. Combat training hasn't been going too well so far. None of the spells Rio has come up with have had much impact. Still, he spends the next few hours pushing himself, practicing non-stop until he finally collapses from mana depletion. Figuring he's reached his limit for the day, he calls it quits. But the very next morning, as soon as his mana is fully restored, he jumps right back into training. This routine becomes Rio's daily life over the next few weeks. Thanks to all his hard work, he can now create ice instantly, making it a reliable offensive spell. With his new set of attack magic finally ready and his food supply starting to run out, Rio ventures into the forest for the first time to begin hunting. He quickly notices a set of animal tracks and decides to follow them, which leads him to a nearby river. While exploring the area, he comes across some quartz by the riverside, something he can use to start fires by striking it against the edge of his sword. He also takes the opportunity to collect some detox herbs, just in case he needs them later. But suddenly, a deep growl rumbles from behind him. When he turns around, he finds himself face to face with a lesser boar, and he freezes in place. The boar charges at Rio, but this is his first life or death battle, so he panics. At the last possible second, he snaps to his senses and leaps sideways, barely dodging the beast's rush. However, the boar isn't finished its turns, ready to attack again. Luckily, Rio's mind clears just in time. As the boar charges toward him, he swiftly creates an icy path beneath its hooves, causing it to slip. Without wasting a moment, he summons several sharp ice spikes directly in the boar's path, stabbing it and killing it instantly. After butchering the boar, Rio pulls out the monster guidebook to learn more about it. According to the book, the lesser boar is actually the weakest monster found in that forest. The guide itself is clearly intended for beginners, so most of the listed creatures are fairly simple. However, toward the end of the book, Rio notices 2 additional pages that stand out. They look like they might contain something important. One of the pages describes dragons, immensely powerful creatures capable of wiping out entire cities by themselves. The guide strongly advises fleeing immediately if he ever comes across one, as fighting it would be hopeless. That said, outrunning a dragon isn't likely either, so running into one is game over. Another page mentions mysterious beings called Akuma, apparently a type of fallen angel. However, the book offers very little information about them. The book's only advice is simple: if you ever encounter one, you're as good as dead. The following day, Rio heads out to hunt again. But while his guard is down, a giant assassin hawk swoops down from above and launches a surprise attack. The creature uses wind magic to slice through its prey with razor-sharp slashes. Rio has no choice but to run, quickly summoning ice shields to block the incoming blades of wind. He knows hawks are extremely dangerous opponents and would rather avoid a fight, but escaping isn't an option. That means his only choice now is to stand his ground and fight back. He lifts his hand and launches a stream of water jets, but the hawk skillfully evades the attack and dives at him, using wind magic to strike. Rio, however, reacts just in time, forming an ice shield that cuts the hawk across the eye and sends it crashing into the ground. Moments later, the hawk regains consciousness, though it has permanently lost one eye. It takes to the skies to retreat, but before disappearing, it locks eyes with Rio one last time, etching his face into memory, because now it's personal. Rio lets out a sigh of relief, grateful to have made it out alive. Still, this is far from the peaceful life he had imagined for himself. During the chase with the hawk, he ran so deep into the forest that he ended up completely lost, wandering until well into the night. As he searches for a way back home, he unexpectedly stumbles upon a glowing lake. Right in the middle of it stands a Dullahan, and from the looks of it, the creature has already noticed him. Over time, Rio hones his skills through relentless training, mastering the art of hunting and preserving food with little difficulty. His water magic has grown significantly more powerful. He can now conjure razor-sharp ice sheets and slam them down in an instant. Even his water jets have reached new heights, slicing effortlessly through solid stone. At this point, his combat prowess has become formidable. However, ice magic isn't the only thing Ryo has been practicing. Ever since his encounter with the Dullahan, he's ventured into the forest each night to battle it. Strangely, the monster guidebook never mentioned Dullahans. Either they aren't classified as monsters, or they're too advanced for a beginner's manual. Regardless, Ryo remains determined to face it. He rushes in with his ice staff and starts swinging, treating the encounter more like a training session than a real battle after all. The Dullahan completely outmatches him in both power and technique. Ryo does his best to defend himself, summoning ice shields to block the incoming blows. But despite his efforts, he's quickly overwhelmed and brought down within seconds. Though the Dullahan has never spoken a single word to him, Ryo can't shake the feeling that it's taken on the role of a mentor, trying to mold him into something stronger. Suddenly, the Dullahan lifts its sword and channels water magic to lengthen the blade. Ryo is taken aback to discover that it can use water magic too. After showing him how the technique works, the Dullahan hands the sword over to Ryo and calmly steps out onto the lake. One day while Ryo is out hunting, he is ambushed by the same assassin hawk from their previous encounter. He doesn't remember it being black before, it must have evolved, pushing itself to grow stronger just for this moment of vengeance. The hawk swoops down at Ryo, unleashing a barrage of wind slashes. In response, Ryo quickly conjures 5 layers of ice walls for protection. But now that the hawk has evolved, its wind attacks are far more powerful, strong enough to shatter all of Ryo's defenses in an instant. And now a wave of anxiety begins to creep over him. Ryo sprints across the field, throwing up ice walls to shield himself from incoming strikes. When he spots an opening, he fires back with a volley of ice spikes. But the hawk easily evades them, surging forward with a sudden burst of speed, and that's not the only surprise it has in store. The hawk lets out a piercing screech at a frequency that disrupts Ryo's magic, causing his ice shields to vanish and leaving him nearly unprotected. But the hawk isn't finished, yet it hovers menacingly in front of him, and Ryo senses that a major attack is coming, though he can't predict when. Moments later, Ryo can feel electricity in the air as a bolt of lightning is shot straight at him. And an attack like that would have been fatal. But luckily, he was able to use a stick as a lightning rod and jump away to save himself. As Ryo struggles to shake off the lingering shock, the hawk swoops down, aiming to deliver a fatal strike with its sharp claws. At the last moment, Ryo summons his ice blade and deflects the attack. They exchange several more blows, but Ryo remembers his intense training with Dullahan, so he spots an opening in the hawk's guard and drives his sword straight through its neck. As the hawk crashes to the ground, Ryo slowly walks toward it, feeling a sense of understanding. He knows what it's like. The hawk lost an eye because of him, and ever since, it's been driven by the need to prove it was stronger, pushing itself to evolve. But Ryo has also been working hard to grow stronger. And in the end, despite everything, the hawk was still defeated. Afterward, Ryo starts making his way home, but to his complete surprise, a dragon suddenly appears before him. Remembering what the book said about dragons being unbeatable, he's convinced this is the end for him. But to his surprise, the dragon speaks to him through telepathy. It doesn't seem aggressive at all, in fact. It explains that it's just passing through, searching for a black hawk that passed through the area. The dragon simply wants to know if Ryo has seen it nearby. Relieved that the dragon isn't hostile, Ryo quickly realizes it must be referring to the hawk he just defeated. Nervously, he apologizes and explains that the hawk attacked him first, leaving him no choice but to fight back and end its life. The dragon is in shock that a human like Ryo was able to defeat a hawk, though he doesn't appear particularly bothered by it. What really catches his attention is the sword Ryo carries. He immediately recognizes it as the Fairy King's blade. For the Fairy King to entrust such a weapon to a mere boy, Ryo must have done something to earn his favor. The dragon has grown fond of Rio, and Rio, still lacking much knowledge about this world, was hoping to ask him some questions. The two end up chatting for several hours, well into the evening, but their conversation is eventually interrupted as the dragon says he must return home. Rio expresses his gratitude for the dragon's answers, and the dragon thanks him in return, saying it's been a long time since he's had such an engaging conversation. They part ways with a warm farewell, but meanwhile, up in heaven, Michael is going over the documents related to Rio's reincarnation when he suddenly spots something he had previously overlooked. It turns out Rio was granted a hidden trait, something Michael hasn't seen since he sent a girl to that world 10,000 years ago. In Rio's case, the trait is eternal youth, and Michael finds it rather unusual.